Greetings and welcome to another edition of
Positronic.
I am Barry P. Cook, and as you probably guessed from not only the thumbnail but the background I'm sporting, that I'm here to review Wonder Woman 1984, which I've just finished watching on HBO Max. This movie, they're saying it didn't do well overseas. I don't know how true that is, but I've seen some reports about it. Of course, I haven't seen anything about how it did domestically because I just finished watching it, and I put it on right at about noon. So there isn't really any news yet. And I know that some folks have, been saying for a while since the plot pretty much leaked that they thought this was yet another sort of social justice movie. And, that meant that I was, going into it with not a preconceived notion, but with that sort of thought in the back of my head that, okay, they're saying this movie is, like social justice themed or Trump or what have you. But here's what I thought of it. First of all, in the beginning, by the way, there's going to be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to want to hold off. So that's your spoiler warning. But first of all, the beginning takes place on Themyscira in the past, and it's just so beautifully shot. The environments and the Amazonian society. It just looks great. And it shows a contest among the Amazons in which Diana is participating as a little kid, and she sort of ends up almost winning, but doesn't win because the Robin Wright character pulls her out of the way at the very last moment when she's about to win, because she saw her do something that she considered cheating, which it really wasn't. Diana is competing in this contest. Part of it takes place on horseback. She is looking back at her competitors who are all behind her, and she hits a tree branch and falls off her horse. The horse runs away, but she sees a way to catch up with the horse by sliding down the side of a hill and getting ahead of the horse, because she surmises where the horse is going. So she gets ahead of the horse and jumps on its back when it goes by and continues to lead the pack of competitors. But she misses one of her targets along the way that she's supposed to hit, and so Robin Wright's character didn't allow her to win. She considered it cheating, that she took a shortcut because she wasn't on the horse during the part of the race where she was sliding down the mountain and the horse was carrying on without her. I didn't think that was cheating. So anybody else who saw the movie already, and I don't know if you think it's cheating, I didn't think that was cheating. She just wasn't on the horse for part of the time, but the horse ran the whole way. She just caught up to the horse. So, what's the big deal? If she had run after the horse and caught up to it, that wouldn't have been cheating, but it's cheating because she found a way to head the horse off and get back on it. I didn't think that was cheating. If anything, she should have been disqualified for missing the one target. But anyway, just a minor thought. This is a totally different film than the first film. The first film is a war epic, basically. It takes place during World War I. It is, of course, an origin story. And you don't know who exactly the bad guy is during the whole movie. I mean, it's Ares, but you don't know who Ares is. You never see Ares doing his thing as Ares, so you don't know who the bad guy is. You see that one evil general guy or whatever and what he's up to, but he's not the main bad guy. So I thought it was very different. And it in that movie she first falls in love with Steve, uh, and she's a fish out of water. So it was that type of film. This is a different movie. It's more of a modern, superhero story where the superhero already exists in the world and confronts a situation that comes up when a particular person starts to go rogue and wreak havoc. It's not a story of leaving her homeland like the first one was. It's not a story about being the only person who believes that the true enemy is a certain entity while nobody else sees that. Um, so I thought that was good, and because you don't want movies to repeat themselves, and it worked. This film stands alone on its own. It doesn't depend on what happened in the first one. It's a standalone superhero film with a completely unique plot, and throughout this film you do get to see the inner machinations of the primary bad guy. Cheetah is sort of the secondary bad guy in this film, and her story is actually pretty cool. I think it's a better plot. Well, I don't say a better plot. It's a better character. Well, that's not true either. I was a little more sympathetic to her character than the main bad guy, but that's just me, perhaps. The part of this movie that caught me off guard was that, it revolves around wish fulfillment. And Diana sort of inadvertently wishes Steve back to life. She doesn't know that she's going to actually make it happen when she makes the wish. She just sort of absentmindedly makes the wish on a stone that has the power to grant wishes, unbeknownst to her. And so he comes back to life, but she very soon figures out that he's only there because he was able to take over someone else's body. And she sort of just lets this stand. She doesn't say, no, no, we immediately have to reverse this. And, I think Diana would have, as soon as she figured out what was going on, because that's the character. She's altruistic. She's a paragon, at least in a lot of depictions, such as the first Wonder Woman TV series, certainly in the first film. And her response to that at that moment is, no, this is the one thing I've ever wanted, is just to be with you, and I do so much for everybody else. I'm completely selfish the rest of the time. I want this one thing. And at that moment, I said, this is not a flaw in the story that I originally thought it was, or like I originally thought it was, where they were depicting the character in a way that she wouldn't behave. It became a moment where, okay, yeah, she's not a paragon. She's not perfect. She's flawed, and like anyone else who's flawed, she would behave selfishly at some time in her life, as she's doing here. And so I thought it was great because it showed that she's, just like humans in a lot of ways, even in a lot of ways, or in at least one way, even though she's superhuman. So I liked that just generally, and I liked it because it digs into this narrative that you hear sometimes about, female empowerment movies, or movies or shows where the female is very much empowered, and people nitpick and say, oh, they're a Mary Sue, like they do with Rey from Star Wars. They don't have any flaws. They're always perfect, like they say about Michael Berman. And of course, in her case, it's true, unfortunately. But this stabs that right in the face because it depicts her as not being that. And I thought that was good because she shouldn't be that. I mean, you want your heroes to be paragons. You want your heroes to live up to an ideal. But the fact of the matter is, in order for it to have any real meaning, and in order for people to actually be able to relate to it, those heroes have to falter at least sometimes. They at least have to fall victim to selfishness and other vices some part of the time. And so I thought it was great that they did that with her. getting back to something I said earlier, how Wonder Woman, the first one, was a fish out of water story. Well, this was too, because Steve Trevor is back to life from like 1916, 1917, living in 1984, and now he's the fish out of water, and Diana has to sort of, introduce the modern world to him. So I thought that was very cool because it had been the opposite in the first movie. A very cool thing that happens in the movie is you get to see the invisible jet. The invisible jet, quote unquote. She turns a jet invisible and flies around in it through a fireworks display, and it's very cool. At one point in the movie, Diana talks about where her armor comes from, that gold armor that you've seen in the trailers. And it apparently once belonged to a character named Asteria, who gave her life, or who the Amazons thought had given her life, to hold back, mobs of men as the Amazons escaped to Themyscira when the Amazon world was first conquered. And I thought, I wonder if that's going to turn out to be Lynda Carter, because you don't see her whole face at first, just her eyes, and in a flashback. And I don't think Lynda Carter played the part in the flashback, but because they didn't show the face, I wonder if they're going to have that be Lynda Carter, so put a pin in that. At one point, the guy who's been granting all the wishes in this story, after he basically becomes this supernatural wishing stone by wishing to become it, realizes that Steve is not, really Steve, that he's just inhabiting this other body, and he points that out to Steve, and I was like, how did he know that? But I guess you're not supposed to wonder about that. We finally get to see Wonder Woman fly. She never did in the TV series, on her own without the jet. She didn't in the first film, but she finally does in this one, and it's pretty cool. Towards the end, this plot kind of took on the plot of Bruce Almighty, because there was a lot of wish fulfillment in that, people praying to God, who is Bruce, and, everything falling to chaos because, this wish competes with that wish, competes with this wish, and not everybody can have what they want, and even when they do, it disrupts things to the point of chaos because things that shouldn't be happening end up happening. So I guess that was inevitable as they went down this road of trying to show what happens when everybody gets what they want, or when one man gets way too much. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but that's not a knock against the film. You're gonna see that. I mean, there have been stories about the dangers of wish fulfillment in other shows and films and so forth going back decades. But I really liked this movie. I thought it was just as good as the first one. A lot of sequels don't live up to the first one. They're kind of lame a lot of the time. But this one lived up to the first one, and I think it worked because they took their time to tell the story. It's a 2.5-hour movie. They really took their time to show, Pedro Pascal's character get from A to B, and they really took their time showing Kristen Wiig's character going from A to B. The same for, the character of Diana. She starts the movie in one place and sort of ends it in another, and, she changes back and forth over the course of the film from one state to another and then back. And they really took their time showing all of that take place. The critique of this film that I've heard before it even came out, as I said, from some corners, was that it was sort of anti-Trump or anti-right or, social justice, because it sort of poo-poos materialism. It poo-poos the idea of, being greedy, whether it's for material wealth or just other things that you want. If you want to be more intelligent, if you want to be more powerful, if you want to be more attractive, if you want to be more wealthy, if you want to be more educated, that it's wrong to sort of just wish those things into being. But this is a real human foible, right? That people engage in, and that has a role in the state of the world, because some people just can never have enough, and it's detrimental. That's just a real life thing. So for them to tell a story about it, I don't think was wrong, and I don't think it has to be looked at as a political agenda, although some of the parallels are hard to ignore. So maybe there was a little of that in there, but it's still a story that has been told before and will be told again, and is worthy of telling. So I didn't have a problem with it. And it ultimately allows Diana to show that yes, she is pretty much altruistic, and that she is heroic, and that she does try to live up to that ideal of being a paragon, even if she sometimes falters. That at her core, she is still that person who wants to do the right thing, and who wants, good and truth to prevail. And I think that's what we should want from our superhero films. I think this movie was just as good as the first, as I said. I think it was way better than Justice League. I think it was way better than, Batman v Superman, way better than Man of Steel. It's just a really good film. So I'm happy about it. I would give it, 5 stars without hesitation. By the way, again, major spoilers. If you haven't tapped out yet, you might want to tap out at this point, because I got one more spoiler for you. There is a scene during the credits, and it turns out that my suspicion was correct about who Asteria is, and it was, in fact, Lynda Carter, and she's in the movie in a very quick cameo, and it literally made my wife and I jump. We went, ah! at the same time, because she kind of whips around, and it was glorious. And she still looks great, of course. So, definitely see it. If you like the first one, if you like the Wonder Woman character, you should definitely check it out. I was a little disappointed they've never called her Wonder Woman. I thought for sure in this movie they're going to finally come around to, someone's going to call her Wonder Woman, like they call Superman, Superman, and Batman, Batman, and so forth, but it never happens. She's still just Diana, and that's something that they've done with the character in the animated DC films. They just call her Diana in most, if not all of them. I've never liked that. I want her to be called frickin' Wonder Woman. But they didn't do it, so maybe in Wonder Woman 3, or if she appears in the Flash movie, or whatever, they'll finally get around to calling her Wonder Woman. But, like I said, 5-star film. Definitely check it out if you have an HBO Max subscription. It's supposed to be coming to the local drive-in here in my state of Rhode Island, and I wanted to go see it there instead of watching it on HBO Max, because I want to see it on a big screen, but I didn't want to do it in a way that would expose myself to COVID, so I thought, the drive-in's perfect, but even though the movie's on their website, there are no available showtimes yet, so maybe it's going to be there in a few days. I don't know, but I may go see it again on the big screen. It's a pretty good movie. But there you go. That's my review of Wonder Woman 1984. You should definitely check it out. Like I said, 5 stars. They really did a good job. So, until next time, I will say, as I always do, peace and long life.